Did Magnum come in?
Yeah, we had Magnum, and we converted Magnum. We dressed him up and started getting him an image and everything else, and he was a fine kid, and we had him for a while, but then he left and went to the Carolinas, and was doing good there. And so yeah, we just blew the doors off here.
And the Fantastics came in.
Fantastics, we tried to follow Rick. They could never follow Ricky and Robert. They were good, but they couldn't take it to the level of what you don't have that many Ricky Mortons. Ricky Morton
is an awesome babyface.
Yeah, I mean, he can do it all. There's a lot of guys that can do the mechanics, but don't have the feel for the match. And there's a big difference. Like, for instance, Ted DiBiase. I called him my catalyst. I wanted him in any match. Ted DiBiase by himself would never draw the biggest bucks in the business. But Ted DiBiase in the match always made the match. Duggan is the kind of guy who could draw money, but Duggan could get so screwed up he's not working with the guys right. I had a hell of an angle here one time with DiBiase and Duggan that was a classic, the best dressed man angle, and every town it's going in, it was going down. And I went and watched, and then I saw why, and I had to chew Duggan's ass. He's guzzling DiBiase. And DiBiase's not going to fight Duggan for getting his own part of the match. DiBiase's just going to go along with it, but it's killing the towns.
Right.
But then as far as heart, you want a guy like Duggan. I mean, he split his head speared his own head in Houston, where it penetrated the skull with this damn turnbuckle. He goes to the hospital, sewed it up. He never missed a show. And finally his wife calls me and said, I don't know if he can make it tonight. He can't even shut his eyes. I said, why? He said, his head is so swollen and it's all puffy. I said, he's got blood poisoning. Get him to the hospital. But if Duggan, with his way, he'd make it if it was going through fire.
Right.
So you had guys that believed in making it. Matter of fact, my rule here was, I don't care if you get in a fight out in public. If you lose, you're fired.
Right.
So if a guy came here and got in a fight, one guy did, a top hand, and I fired his ass. I looked at his hands, and I said, you didn't throw any punches. You were a catcher, not a hitter. You're fired. That's just, if you're going to go out and get in fights, then you better make sure the business wins.
Who was that?
No, let's don't go
okay.
into that.
Jack Victor is telling us something about that. I don't know. Let's see. How did Mid-South turn into UWF? Eventually,
we had to have that because when we started going nationwide, we saw that what Vince was doing, we had to too, and Mid-South had the feel to the advertisers of being regional, so we had to do something that was national, and we got going pretty good. Let me tell you, Mid-South didn't get beat. Every time, Vince will tell you, every time he came here, we kicked his ass. We embarrassed him. What beat us was the oil thing. When the oil crunch hit and wiped out the oil states, that's what beat us. It had nothing to do with our ability to promote. We could beat anybody. We had the highest rated show everywhere it was ever played against anybody.
How did you first syndicate UWF?
Strictly, we had a syndicator that Jim came on in Dallas, and again, that guy was doing a good job, and the oil crunch wiped him out and wiped the guy that was his backer out. This guy owned hotels and everything, and when they all went broke, he went broke too. But we were well on the road to, it was all the old-fashioned way. We did the bartering and the syndication, and most of our commercials were the per inquiry type of commercial, same way that Ted Turner built his station. And we had good results, and I'm telling you, we were just doing fine, and then all of a sudden when that thing hit, the realization of that oil thing, when the bottom dropped out of oil, it just like a spigot turned it off, and I started losing $50,000 every week, and that wasn't monopoly money, that's out of my pocket. And that's a hell of a deal, but we maintained our contracts with our talent, we paid our talent, we kept on going, but I finally got to the point where I realized I had to sell it.
Right, this is back in 86?
86, 87.
Yeah. Before we even get into that period, but you had some of the greatest talent of all time in the UWF, and it was definitely some of the most compelling TV and all.
Sting, that's another one we missed. Sting was a young guy. He was partnering with a guy that was a real
Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah,
Jim Howard.
He was a piece of shit. But Sting had that something about him, and when Hellwig and Sting got upset and walked out on me, I told Grizzly, go get Sting and have him come back.
Right.
I didn't want the other guy.
He went down to Texas.
But Sting, and Sting was scared to death. I booked him with me in Tulsa, and Sting thought then I was going to beat him up.
Right.
And he says, is there a couple of high spots I'd like to do? Can I call a couple in the ring? I said, sure, call the high spots that you think will fit your match well. But Sting told me later, he says, I was so scared that night. And I said, I was not angry at you, or I wouldn't have you back. I didn't bring you back to beat you up.
Right.
I brought you back because I saw what you had. And I still have a lot of respect for Sting.
Watch thousands of exclusive shoot interviews right now on TitleMatchNetwork.com.